Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to our next snippet. Our next snippet is snippet 83. Wow, 83. So I'm going to begin by using stamp set TE24 Creative Spark. And I'm going to use the compass-like stamp, and I'm going to use Morning Mist VersaFine Clair ink. So we'll just take our ink and we're just going to create a nice simple snippet. So I'm going to begin by adding the grey stamped image towards the top of the project. I've then created a little mask that's just out of paper. So I'm just going to add the mask there. Now you can hold that in place with a piece of low tack tape should you wish. So again, with the VersaFine Clair Morning Mist, I'm then going to sort of rotate it a little bit. Lift that up. And it doesn't matter if your image is a little bit distressed, you know, if you don't get it perfect or whatever, it's absolutely fine. Because you're just creating a background element. So we'll just create a background, and you're not creating the whole background, it's just towards the top edge that I'm adding that. And to look lovely just like that. Isn't that just lovely? Oh, small things. So I'm going to add another one. So then I'm going to add this one here, like so. I do like this grey ink, which you've heard me say many times before, and we'll stamp this one. We'll add that here. So just creating sort of a cluster towards the right hand edge. I'll bring this one, let's make sure that's on there. Bring this one up a little bit. So a nice simple snippet, because I went into detail in my previous video why we're creating the snippets, etc. I just love that. So now I've got something that I can dangle my light bulb from, and it's up to you which light bulb you use, whether you use the large one or the small ones or a mix of both. So let's place this one back. Again, this is from TE24. Let's just make sure our fingers are nice and clean. And then we'll just grab a bigger, I don't need a bigger acrylic block actually. So we'll take the light bulb again from TE24. We'll take this one. And it doesn't matter if I don't get a perfect image because I'm going to paint. So I'm going to add this light bulb here. And again, I don't have to look for perfection. This is a bit slippy because I've added the moisture from that white then onto the acrylic block. Very clever. But even if you wanted to do monochromatic, it just looks beautiful. Now I'm going to see if I want to add a smaller bulb. And I can place that on there, but before I do anything, I can always use my acetate just to judge whether I want a smaller one. And you know, I think I will. So we'll take that ink. Again, it really doesn't matter. I'm just inking some of the area because I'm going to paint. So let's have one here. So I didn't ink the centre because there's no need. I don't know why I did it on the first one. But again, they just look wonderful even when they are distressed and you don't stamp perfectly. They just look wonderful. So let's move those out of the way. And now let's add a little bit of colour. Now, because I've got that dark colour underneath, it does affect the colours on top. If I put white on there, then that makes it brighter, but I'm not going to even bother. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some lime paint, and I can bet you that it'll be one that has got no paint in it because I've got several pots and I didn't check beforehand. Bit irritating. Let's grab another one, hopefully. All my lime paints are running a little bit low. Shall we try again? That's better. So a little bit of lime, a little bit of turquoise. Not exactly a bit, Tracy. And a touch of the peacock. So I'm going to treat these just like I would if I was using pencils. You can use your pencils should you wish. I'm going to have a little bit of water just so that the paint flows a little bit. And then I'm just going to have a piece of kitchen roll should I use too much moisture on my brush. So I'm going to add a base coat of the green. So just add the base coat of the green. So just turn this around and you can see that we've got that dark colour underneath. So it means I've automatically got a dark edge to the light bulb. These paints from Dina Wakley are quite thick, but obviously that grey, and I'm using a bit of water, so that grey underneath is giving me a different base than if I used white. It just makes it look a little bit different. And because the paints are a little bit thicker, if I use water, that means therefore they become more translucent. So let's pick up a little bit more of that paint, just to add a little bit of that colour. And with the grey on there, it sort of naturally gives that some depth. Now I want to show you the difference. I'm going to try and show you the difference. Sometimes it's difficult to sort of see everything I'm trying to show, but hopefully this light bulb will show the difference. Hang on, just bear with me a second. Let's just add a little bit of the green. Right, if you look here, can you see how it's more solid because I didn't cover it with grey ink? It's got the white card underneath, so it sort of covers better. So if you just want to just ink the edge of the light bulb, you can have the white underneath, but it just gives it a different look with the grey underneath. But it does make a difference when you're doing techniques if you realise all these things. And I often learn through mistakes that I've made. Oh, I learn so much through mistakes that I've made a lot of the time. That's how I learn. I'm not very good at reading instructions. I'm a very visual learner. I like to see things done. And if I don't see them done, and the only way I can learn is to do it myself and learn by those mistakes. Okay, so I'm going to, this paint is now dried here, so I'm now going to add another layer. No different than if you were using your pencils. I'm adding that next layer. So whilst that's still a little bit wet, so let's just clean that a little bit. I'm then going to pick up the turquoise. So I'm going to pick up the turquoise, and you've seen me most of the time. I will start dark to light, but I like to show you that you can do it light to dark if you wish. It's entirely up to you. That's why I like to show you different ways each time. Now, remember, I've watered that paint down, therefore it's more translucent. By adding layers, I will make it more opaque. By adding layers whilst that paint is still wet means that I can blend the colour a little bit more easily, because the paint underneath the green is slightly wet. So I'm going to add another layer. Now, what I'm going to show you is I'm layering on here, and you can't see much of the layer. So what I like to do is dry. So if we dry that layer, so just give that a little dry. You don't have to give it much of a dry, just a little bit of a waft with your heat tool. And then when you go in with the paint, add a little bit of water, it layers automatically much better because you've heated the underneath layers. Okay, so just scribble that out. Let's add a little bit of the blue here, and then we'll add another layer here, and then I'm just going to rinse that brush, and then I'm going to go into the peacock, the much darker colour, and I'm going to add, let's add a bit more water. Load your brush up. This is just the fine brush, so it makes it much easier. And whatever base colour, like I've used the grey, it makes a difference to the overall finish of the card. So let's add a little bit of the, and again, I'm going to add a layer of that colour. And it's no different than, obviously it's a different medium, but just like you would layer colour with your pencils, you're layering colour with your paints. So it's no different. The one difference obviously is when you're layering with pencils, you break down the card. The difference with the paint is if you wet your card too much, you break your card down that way because you make your card too soggy. So I'm just using layers, very light layers, and building that layer of paint up. So I'm going to go back to the turquoise, my medium colour, just to get rid of the line from the peacock. Was it peacock? Peacock. Okay, then I'm going to give that a really good clean. Clean water is better, Tracy. And then I'm going to go to the green, and that's too much moisture. So then, can you see now it's layering because I've dried the colours underneath. So the colour layers, and all that the VersaFine Clair is doing is giving us a base to work from, so that we've got the design, and just to show that design doesn't have to be black or grey. Use your finger if you use too much paint, because that will just dab off any excess, and then it just gives you sort of a base. Just going to dry that. Just a little dry, and then I'm going to grab my black pen. Let's hope we grab the right one. You know what I'm like. So I'm just going to sort of make sure the light bulbs are dangling from the actual piece. And don't forget, we don't have to have too much on here. So then I'm going to go back to the peacock, like so. Probably a little bit much. And just define that edge a little bit more. Go back to the peacock, exactly like you would with those wonderful pencils that you may have invested in. Exactly the same. Then I'm going to use some, I was going to say clean water, but that's dirty. Don't those colours look lovely in that water? Just wonderful. Just pick up the turquoise, and the turquoise is just going to blend that line out. And again, just use your finger just to dab the edges away. Just add a little bit more and a little bit more. And again, that colour is just layering. And your finger, your fingers are the great tools, but it just sort of diffuses the edge, if that makes sense. It just diffuses that edge a little bit. So if you see there, I can just diffuse the edge with my finger, and that way it looks a little bit more blended. So a little bit there. And it's up to you how many times you go back in and you just add that colour. So on the bigger one, I'm just going to add a little bit more of that turquoise, just to make the edge a little bit softer. I've got all this left, which you know, I'll just mop up that water. I'm not going to waste that. So let's just grab another piece of card whilst it's there. And normally you would think I'm going to brayer it on, but I'm not. I'll just chuck everything all over the place. I'm just going to grab an old credit card. It's not, it's just an old bit of plastic. Pick the colours up, and I'm just going to drag these just down my card, and then I can create a card with that. And I've created like a marbled background, and you can still add more. There we go. So I've created sort of a marbled background that I can create a card with for another project. That way I've not wasted any paint, and it works beautifully. I'm then going to add some splatters. Shall we do the shading first? Let's add a little bit of shading just around here, like so. Let's grab a little bit of water. Now make sure that your brush is clean, because I've used all those colours. So I'm just going to add a little bit of shading just towards the base of those light bulbs, like so. And then I'm just going to add touch of my background stamp, the TE11. And I'm going to use the grey ink. And you'll see how, it changes the whole effect. Just adding a little bit of stamping. So that's just, it just changes it completely. And it doesn't matter that I've not sort of dried. I'm just adding touches of that stamping. You don't have to. And the more sort of loose and random it is, the better. It doesn't have to be too regimented. There we go. And then I would like to add a little bit of white pencil. So I'm just going to add a little touch, and it sort of just moves the pigment, the paint. Just adding a little bit of white, it'll pick up a little bit of that paint just to make it a little bit lighter at this edge. This is just my Prisma pencils, Prismacolor pencils. Where's my, just want our white pen, just to add touches of white. Obviously that wax and that wax pencil, I just need it to sort of calm down a bit first. Let's just give that a dry. The reason you need to give it a dry is the paint has still got moisture in there, and also you've added some VersaFine Clair ink to that as well. So you need to just make sure that that is dry. And if you find like me, because you've got that plasticky finish, let me just see if my bigger Posca pen, that's better. It's just going a little bit more. So just, that's better. Just add touches of white. We will add some of those white splatters. And then we'll just add a word, and the word original. I'm sure it's on this one. It is the word original. Should have a scrap of card somewhere. And we'll just stamp that in black, just so that we've got that word. And then if you want to add a little bird or anything like that, that is entirely up to you. But even in a little snippet, you can add so much detail. Let's make that a little bit smaller. There we go. So the snippets are 4 inches by 6 inches. They're on Pink Frog Super Smooth 300 GSM card, and I always work on 4 inches by 6 inches. The album that I add them to is a Diane Reevely journal, a black one. Let's give that a few seconds just to, let's bring in our journal. And I love how each snippet is completely different. So this was 81 and 82. Those were those ones, and the ones from previous. And then if we add this to here, like so, let's just add it here because you can see it a little bit better. So this is snippet 83, and we'll add a little bit of shading just under there. Just shade under there, just so that that's shaded. And then it's up to you whether you want to add a little bird or anything like that, or just leave it as is. But I have to say, I am loving this. But again, you can use this to hang things off. And on my next snippet, I'll use this again, and we might have something standing on them. So I hope you enjoyed Snippet 83, and I look forward to seeing your interpretations of the last three, 81, 82 and 83. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.